Welcome. We're going to get started. There are quite a number of people who are coming down the stairs to join us. Welcome to Pitch Day 2024. We have an exciting roster of ventures for you to hear from. We welcome your joining, and you'll have an opportunity to ask questions as we're going through. You are at the Pitch Day for ABCT, the Accelerator for Biosciences in Connecticut, and the Westchester County Bioscience Accelerator, WCBA Pitch Day. We are very happy to have Deborah Novick joining us from Westchester County, the initiator of this program, and Tim Miller is here from the state of Connecticut, from AdvanceCT, who's going to be introducing the ventures. So welcome to both of you. My name is Mary Howard. I'm the program director of FirstXFounder, and we manage both of these programs, and you'll get to meet Doris Alcivar, who runs the WCBA program, and Maggie Alnamani, who is the stage manager, because we all wear, like all entrepreneurs, multiple hats, who will be here, and she runs the ABCT program. So here's the agenda. We are starting 5 minutes late. We will catch you up. And one of the things that we are very happy to highlight is one of our alums who is returning, Mousa Ahmadi, who's going to be talking about his journey, along with Martin Krusin. Martin has a day job that is a lot for any normal person, but Martin is very community-minded. He's an extraordinary person, and he's also a coach for the programs and has been for a decade now. We will go into the first pitch flight. You saw when you came down a number of easels that are in the hallway at the top of the theater. The ventures will be there, and then outside the theater hallway, so you have a chance to meet them, and they all have QR codes, so you can be put directly in connection with them. We will take a break. We'll come back, and then we'll do a pitch flight for digital health and for medical devices. The first pitch is going to be all therapeutics. And then we will have another opportunity to network with the second flight of ventures, and then we'll go to the Sky Room. There will be people from our organization who will help you to navigate to that Sky Room. It's a wonderful room where we'll have a reception afterward. So we will be introducing the moderators in a second. We just want to give you a little bit of background on the programs. So FirstXFounder, we rebranded that in 2023. The programs started with the eLab NYC program, sponsored by New York City EDC. It was the first venture program that they had for the life science innovation effort. Those ventures have gone on to raise over $1 billion. They have created hundreds of jobs. The follow-on program to that, Next Milestone, was sponsored by and is sponsored by the Empire State Development Organization. A lot fewer jobs, a lot more money raised, and a lot of big exits, and a lot of momentum that continues to be there at SUNY Downstate. We were invited to go to Connecticut in 2018. Those ventures have moved right along, and you'll see a little bit about that. And then in 2020, just in time for the pandemic, Westchester County invited us to join and provide an opportunity to build a pipeline based on the success of the #1 employer in the state of New York, which is Regeneron in that county, and build on all of the connections and fantastic resources that are right there in Westchester. So what have we done new to share with our programs? We have a back end, like everybody has got an AI/ML aspect to their products and services, and we have done this too. We've worked with one of the alums, in fact, who does genomic research on a contract basis and does the data analysis for Big Pharma. And so these are hierarchical pie charts which represent the connections that we have for the ventures. These are updated weekly based on coaching reports, and so we have an understanding of where the ventures are looking for help on a a weekly basis and are able to connect them to mentors who have expertise in those areas. So that's been a fantastic tool for us to allow us to work with people who come from disparate backgrounds and also at different stages, and to provide them closer to real-time support in connections. One of the big opportunities we have that we love is to share where are they now. This used to be 1 or 2 or 3 bullet points, which were links to press releases. Now we have what we created as a pipeline chart, and that pipeline gets more and more full every year. So you can see the way to read this is the cohort in columns, with the most recent being on your left. And the logos for the ventures who have graduated from the program in the different rows, indicating whether they're generating revenue, which I think has been a surprise for a lot of people, that anyone's generating revenue with something called biosciences. And secondly, non-dilutive funding. Connecticut does an incredible job at, and so does Westchester, with the ventures receiving, after a lot of work, an SBIR award. So 30% of the ones who have come through the ABCT program have been awarded SBIRs. And as you can see, the longer they've been out, the more people win these SBIR awards, and the same thing with what we're seeing with Series A's and seed rounds. That's a little bit of a blurry category now because some seed rounds are big and some Series A's aren't as big as seeds, so we've combined them. But there's quite a number of people here, and then we've got people who have now moved into Series B's, and a year, about 15 months ago, Alamec exited to Pasithea, and they have moved forward to FDA trials at Pasithea with their target asset. So when you look at Westchester, this is a big update from last year. We're seeing a really nice development, continuing lots of revenue-generating ventures, including in the 2024 cohort. We're at 17% right now with the SBIR awards. It's very high. It's not easy to get these SBIR awards. It opens up a lot of networks for them and adds credibility to 1- and 2-person teams. And as you'll see, a lot of people are now closing seed / Series A's. So we're thrilled to report on all of these changes, and are very excited for helping to support the pipeline of these early stage ventures. We would like to now introduce our speakers for Fireside Chat. We have Mousa Ahmadi, who is been a co-founder of Hourinaz. He's in the WCBA 2020 program, which means he was out graduating 4 years ago now. Well, 5, because you can never count, right? You know, you have to count the first year plus all the others, so that's actually 5 years ago. It's an extraordinary story. We are thrilled to have Mousa return and share how that has been built. And the person who's going to be speaking with him is Martin Krusin, the Senior Vice President of Corporate Development at First Wave Biopharma, and also a coach at FirstXFounder. So I want you all to help me welcome the two of them onto the stage. Thank you. And we'll give them some chairs to sit in as well. Well, thank you so much, Martin. We owe you a big debt. A lot of people who have come through the programs have benefited greatly from your patient education. And Mousa, thank you for returning to share the extraordinary story of Hourinaz.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. It's with great pleasure that I've had an opportunity to reconnect with Mousa, who I coached 4 years ago. So we're going to hear how things have been going in the time since. Mousa, would you like to give a little bit of background about the company?
Sure. So my name is Mousa Ahmadi. I'm the co-founder of Hourinaz. The story that I say about our company is that think about one day when you wake up and you don't have your voice, and then how that would affect your life, not being able to talk to family members, friends, and coworkers. So we are a medical device company with this mission to make sure no one experiences a voice loss, either temporarily or permanently. So in 2019, we started a company with my co-founder, who's also my sister, and we went through the WCBA program in 2019, 2020. Since then, we have done multiple rounds of fundraising. We have done pre-seed and seed, and we are preparing for a Series A. And we have been working with more than 30 hospitals across the US with our devices. And our device is Bionic Voice. It's a smart, non-invasive device with voice artificial intelligence that helps the patients to speak with a natural sounding voice. The reason that we created this device was that we looked at the market and what was available, and we realized that the devices are either very invasive, they're very surgical, or they are very robotic sounding, and they actually affected the well-being of the patients. So we brought the device to the patients. We have around 60 patients who are using our devices on a daily basis, and then the outcomes have been very, very pleasing for us. And one of the great things about the experience that we have had was that we keep hearing from these patients every day about how much they like the devices, how they could go back to their professional lives, how they could talk to their family members. And it's been very inspiring for us, and we would love to continue the journey.
And maybe you can speak to some of the challenges you faced when you were starting the company a few years ago.
Sure. The biggest challenge was 2019, and then we were going through the program, and we actually never had the in-person pitch day. So I think February, March of 2020, things started to get a little bit strange. And I remember some of the program participants started getting sick. And I remember we were talking with Martin on the calls, and then at some point we realized that probably pitch day is going to be remote. And probably the challenge was that we were really getting ready to start doing fundraising in the US, and then really focus on that. When COVID happened, things kind of slowed down. We didn't really have that option anymore. We started focusing on Australia, and the reason is that my co-founder back then, she lived in Australia. She was also planning to move to the US. When COVID happened, we kind of reversed the plan. She stayed in Australia, and then we started doing fundraising there. And we managed to get matching grants from the Australian government that really helped us. So there's been that, but also as a medical device company, there's always regulatory work and approvals and all of that. And we have been always very focused on that. We had initially not getting a lot of introductions from with hospitals and venues that we could work with. And at some point, we decided to, back then, we went through the WCBA program, but we were in Brooklyn. And we decided to move to Westchester. And one of the reasons was being part of the WCBA program. And when we moved there, then we actually got a lot of introductions from hospitals and engagements from there. So there have been some challenges in terms of that. And a startup always needs fundraising, and then that never stops. And we have been very happy to, have those challenges, but then being able to overcome that every year and basically make sure that the company is running and we get enough resources for that.
And at the time, really since then, what was the process by which you were raising capital? Because I remembered back then, it was almost an impossible task during COVID, and especially for a med tech device.
Right. I remember how we went from having some calls with investors to no calls, because everyone basically switched their investment strategy for COVID. And they decided to wait and see how things are going to go. And that was a very critical time for us because we really need to actually finish the fundraising. What we did was we actually started scheduling what we called showcase events. And in these showcase events, they are that back then they were remote. We basically took things in our own hands and said, we're going to present our technology, we're going to present our devices, and start to invite investors to those meetings. So instead of waiting for them to reach out to us and tell us, what they expect, we actually took that, we tried to be more proactive and do that. So by doing that, we have managed to raise the first $500,000 from 3 investors. And right away, we could match that for another $500,000. And that became our first million investment that we received. Doing the showcases kind of became a habit for us. So every year we do another showcase, and then we try to, again, invite investors and the community, and recently the health practitioners into our events. And because of that, we have been this steady stream of investment that are coming into the company. A little bit challenging, but at the same time made us to think about new approaches that we could have and not really focus on one channel, which is waiting for investors to approach us. How about we actually do the presentations ourselves and then get their feedback and then see what they think.
I think this is a fantastic model and something that really is would be a benefit to most of the ventures who go through the program. To that end, maybe speak a little bit more about it, in terms of how you organize them, what's the structure of the format, because you're really doing outreach to bring people. Walk us through what such an event looks like.
Absolutely, we just did one like 2 weeks ago, so I have like very fresh memories of that. So we initially start a round of discussions with investors that we think could be interested over time. And we start creating a list of folks that we could invite to that. So we do the first round of introductions. We explain the technology and tell them about the impact that it could have. The impact part really connects with some investors, and then they understand that this could be a technology that could help a huge population. The population that it helps is throat cancer survivors mostly. These are patients who get throat cancer and then they end up losing their voice. So there's the impact part of that. The other applications of the device is ICU patients, because they end up in ICUs, and we have around 1 million ICU patients that get trached, and then they end up without a voice for 4 weeks, and then they can't talk to the family members and medical staff. And that's another traction point, because it has a larger market. So we bring folks from the impact area, but also folks who are interested in this large market of ICU patients. Then afterwards, we create a very thorough deep dive into our technology, and we bring a lot of points about the traction that we have had. And traction really helps because a lot of investors want to know that you are actually working with customers and getting their feedback and really showing the impact of your device. So when we started, we have 5 patients who were using our devices. Now we are at 60, and we don't have any limitations of showing all the data, all the recordings of these patients that really are using the device. And they actually the patients want us to do that. They actually encourage us to show these videos and then advocate for this device. So in showcases, we show the videos, we show the market, and then we show the impact of the device. And it's been the case that right after every showcase, recently during the showcase, people say that they want to invest, and then they want to come in, and they want to be part of that. We're not giving up on the existing channels. We still work, for example, with angel networks. We still work with VCs and exploring their interests. But we realize that having the showcases as our main channel helps to have less dependency on that, and then be more focused on doing things ourselves. And if the other investments come in, absolutely.
Maybe just going back, how was the program helpful for you when you were starting out in really the broader Westchester, New York ecosystem?
So I remember when we started the program, the story was that we actually went to another program, and someone told us, you're in the wrong place, you have to go to the WCBA program. And then we found Mary, and we actually went to the information session. And I remember back then it was me, my co-founder, and a few medical collaborators that were working with us. And we basically were a project, something that we had in mind, that this could become a company, but we were not sure how to put that together, especially because we were 2 technical founders. And I remember going to the program and working with Mary and Martin. The first thing that came to my mind was that we have to switch and then now think about the company and then not just the product. Where there's interest about the product, but then the bigger interest is about how the company is going to work out. How are you guys going to make money? How are you guys going to have this large market? And then what's your plan? And I remember one day they asked us to write down the plans, and then we didn't have a lot to write down. Maybe we had like 1 or 2 lines about this is what we think could go. So we, through the program, which I think for us it was a little bit longer than 6 months because of COVID, we really started rethinking everything about the company and then how things could come together. So we started as a project, but I remember when we finished the program, we were a company. We were a startup, and then we were hiring our first employees other than myself and my co-founder. We were just bringing them full-time. And that also opened the doors for us to understand Westchester and Hudson Valley as well. Because back in the day, now we were in New York City, but then back in the day, everyone was like, start a company, stay in New York City, and then that's where opportunities happen, which happens to a lot of startups and to a lot of companies. For us, we realized that actually if we move to Westchester, there's more engagement with hospitals and clinics that we could have than in New York City. And a lot of times when we go to a hospital in New York City, they're so busy that we can't really get the message out. We can't really get them that this is what we do and this is like, the product. But in Westchester, we could actually sit down and then have a meeting with them and then talk to them in details about this is, this is how we work on things. So by going through the program, we understood that the Westchester is a very great option for doing the line of work that we were doing. And I remember after we moved there, we got 3 emails on the same day that these are the venues that you should talk to. And then we did all of that, and that really helped us. So I think when we moved to Westchester, there was the ecosystem that was, up and coming. But now there are lots of innovation and startups that are actually happening there. And what also excites me a lot is that as an immigrant, I see a lot of international companies coming to me and then say, what about Westchester? Have you thought about that? Because we know about New York, but not about Westchester. And I encourage them right away because I think there are lots of collaborations there. There's the proximity to New York City, but more opportunities that they may not have in other parts. So it's very exciting for me to, those companies that are coming here and then they're calling, Westchester their professional home, although they may live in New York City, but then they actually choose that and they're very proud to be here.
What are the next steps for Hourinaz?
Absolutely. So we are in the process of launching 2 products in this year. We have a branch in Australia and then our office here in New York State. We are launching our product this month, actually, as I actually come from this meeting of putting all the logistics together. And we are launching the same product in July in the US. Our second product that has the voice AI component in it, that's going to be launched towards the end of the year. We are getting to a stage that we have to ask people to hold off a little bit because a lot of times they reach out and then they say we need to get this going and then we need to try your products. And at some point we need to make sure that we are going on a steady pace. I remember there was one venue that reached out to us. Actually, we reached out to 2 years ago. Back, it was a very reputable venue. Back then, we didn't have a lot of resources, a lot of traction data to work with them. So they said, it's interesting, but we don't know a lot about what you work on. 2 weeks later, we got an email saying, how dare you not come to us and then not work with us anymore? Because they have heard from other people who tried the product and they loved it and then they wanted to try it. So a good amount of traction building up, a little bit of a snowball effect, I would say, especially that in this domain, in the case of voice devices, there hasn't been anything new over the past 60 years. And it's shocking why that's happened. If you compare voice loss and hearing loss, in hearing loss domain, every 10 years, there's a new category of devices coming out. If you go to Walgreens or CVS, you see hearing aids that you could buy as headphones, basically. But then in the voice loss domain, hasn't been anything over the past 60 years. So we're the first company that is emerging and providing that device for the patients. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we go on a steady pace and make sure that we get feedback before fully releasing the products.
Yeah, and I might add that for those of you who haven't seen or experienced the product, I would recommend looking at it. It truly is transformative. If you see patient testimonials, this has been really game-changing for those, who, as Mousa said, they'd lost their voice. They had no voice, or the alternatives were terrible. So this is truly a transformative technology. Maybe just going a little bit further, what's the rate-limiting factor, in terms of your development? Is it capital? Is it having more sites? What are the limits, and where do you want to take it? Is it in terms of direct to consumers, or do you want to go through distribution or partner with someone?
The answer changes every month, if you ask me. 2 months ago, it was like probably some collaborations, clinical collaborations that we were looking at. Now we have secured that. I think one of the things that I have seen, and it's not about only Laronix as a Westchester-based company, about a lot of other companies as well, that I remember we were on a call with a lot of Westchester founders, and then we were talking about those who have raised funds in Westchester, and then the answer was no one. And I think that's been a little bit transformative for me to think about, how we could provide options, that there are more investment options for a lot of startups that are putting themselves through this journey to make a difference, have an impactful product, and then make things better. So I think that's been a little bit challenged, that every time we look for investment, we have to look into other venues and other sites. I think the WCBA team has done a fantastic job connecting ventures and investors, and then bridging that gap. I'm very excited about how that could evolve and become a long-term pathway for a lot of the companies to look at Westchester first when they want to raise funds. And I know from experience that there are many investors in the Westchester area, and I interact with them many, many times. I think the one that I have seen missing is the connection between the investor community and the companies, and then how we could bring those together. Typical challenges of a medical device company, and making sure that everything is running very smoothly. We are in a market that there are multiple market leaders, and then we have to work with them closely and also compete with them closely. So the challenges of making sure that you are being collaborative, but also at the same time you're providing a product that makes a difference.
What advice would you give to the ventures who are currently in the program? Looking back 4 or 5 years ago and where you are today, what advice would you give them?
First, compliments that you're doing amazing. I've been through this journey, and it's quite, I would say, challenging journey. At the same time, it's very rewarding. Seeing the first group of patients that are using a product and then they're happy with, that goes a long way. And following up on the investment journey to get things in their own hands, at the same time talk to other folks who are interested in investing, but not only exploring the conventional channels. I would say there are many, many other ways to raise funds. For example, for us, a lot of the times there were entrepreneurs that exited their own company, and they were looking for investing. And the first time they approached other companies that are doing impactful work. So it's really using those channels, not only focusing on, talking to venture funds or institutional funds, which are great, but at the same time, not thinking that those are the only options available, because there are many, many other options out there.
Anything you would like to add to this?
I would say, the first thing that comes to my mind is one thing that we have had in mind is, we were post-COVID, things are a little bit different. I think there's a lot of value to having in-person interactions. And I'm really excited to see that happening in Westchester, especially downtown White Plains, because that's walking distance from our office. So I would love to see like a social space that the ventures could come together. I've been really enjoying talking to the ventures and then getting to know them and getting to know about the great work that they're doing. I would love to see that happening organically, and having a home for startups to come to every time they want to seek advice or they want to get help and all of that. Especially again, post-COVID, things have been going back to the way things were. So I'm very excited to, support that. I'm again, White Plains, please visit downtown White Plains. We'd love to have everyone in our office at some point. But I think that would be a great opportunity to bring everyone together and make sure everyone is having enough resources they need for their journey.
And again, please, if you haven't, looked, please look at the Laronix website. You will be amazed by what they've done and are doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for returning, Mousa, and thank you, Martin, for reuniting. At this point, what I'd like to do is introduce our moderators. We have please, Deborah Novick, if you can join from Westchester County, and Tim Miller, who can join from the DECD, AdvanceCT. We look forward to people being able to hear from you. So if you want to, please, Tim, come along and let us all know a little bit more about AdvanceCT.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Great to see you. Huge thanks to Mary and to Maggie for inviting me. My name is Tim Miller, Senior Director at AdvanceCT. We're a nonprofit economic development organization representing the entire state of Connecticut, really with two main areas of focus. The first is business retention and expansion, so assisting companies that are already in Connecticut, making sure they have access to the resources they need to stay in Connecticut, grow in Connecticut. And number two is business attraction, so looking outside of the state to elsewhere in the US and internationally, and being really targeted about finding companies we think are the right fit for Connecticut. We have a few different kind of sectors that we focus on, a few different industries, but my entire day is focused on life sciences, so anything early stage biotech, medical devices, larger pharma, everyone in that world is who I work with day to day. And really our function is to understand that any company evaluating risk or evaluating relocation or expansion is going through a lot of risk, and there are a lot of unknowns, and that's why we exist, to really answer those questions, provide the link to the ecosystem that might make a difference through that process. So that could be academic connections, funding, real estate, state incentives, even finding a role for a trailing spouse, whatever it might be that can make the difference. That's why we exist. And we're a nonprofit, so we don't take any fees. I'd like to say we're generally pretty non-threatening, so that gives us a lot of flexibility to be really helpful. So I'm thrilled to be here and helping these 6 companies from Connecticut kind of on their journey, and excited to get things started. So with that, maybe I'll forward over to Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Deborah Novick, thank you for returning and introducing Westchester County's work.
Thank you, Mary. Always a pleasure to be here. Thanks to all of you here in the auditorium and online watching the stream. So I'm Deborah Novick. I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship and Innovation for Westchester County, and the life sciences is one of our priority sectors. We don't focus so much, we don't think of it as attraction and retention, although of course that's very important. We think of it as, of our role as really bringing people together, convening what's already here, sort of uncovering it like layers of an onion, and helping people meet each other, and that magic typically unravels on its own. So having a program like the Westchester County Biosciences Accelerator is a way of creating a pipeline of ventures, but like Mousa was saying, an important thing is bringing people together and letting them have an opportunity to learn from each other. We had a big event last Wednesday, an annual life sciences showcase where we, again, bring people together, but we give a lot of the companies a chance to sort of show off and tell everybody what they're doing, a little bit like a pitch day, but for more advanced companies. And one of the big pieces of feedback that came out of the day was the same thing. We'd like to have more of these events in person. We'd like to have more opportunities to get together. So it's becoming a little bit of a drumbeat, and I guess I'll have to pick that up. Just before we get started, besides thanking you for being here, I'd like to just say that as you listen to these pitches, what I'd love for you to be thinking about is, how can I help this person? Who do I know that they should know? Who could I introduce them to? What piece of advice could I give them? If you're an investor and they're in your sector, I mean, obviously follow up with them. But even if you're not an investor or they're not in your sector, there's definitely something you can do to help each person on the stage. So make yourself a note of what it might be as you're listening to their presentation. If you have a chance to speak to them at their easel, at the breaks, that's great. If you don't have a chance to do that, please make an effort to follow up with them later on. I'm sure you can reach out to Mary and Doris or me and Tim, and we'll connect you to whoever you lose track of that you'd like to meet. But that's really why we have these events, is so that they can share their stories of their hard work, but also so they can continue to expand their networks, and that's where you come in. So that's my commercial for now, and thank you again for being here, and I think we'll start the pitches. Is that what's next? Okay.
So thank you very much, Deborah. We're going to start with Westchester, and Maggie will be, Maggie El-Namani is going to get Sarah moving. Thanks.
So our first presenter today is Hourinaz Behesti of Hebbian Bio. Hourinaz and Hebbian Bio's innovation propose a proprietary platform that decodes a human central nervous system biology that could be a key to autism and related rare neurodevelopmental disorders.
Thank you. So imagine being completely aware of your surroundings, but not being able to communicate your wishes and wants with your loved ones. That's the reality of a third of the patients diagnosed with autism and related rare neurodevelopmental disorders. My name is Hourinaz Behesti, and I'm the founder of Hebbian Bio, and we are developing a therapeutic platform to enable therapeutics and diagnostics for these conditions. So the problem that we're going after is a really high unmet need. There are currently no approved drugs for the core features of autism and most related neurodevelopmental disorders. And the problem that we're facing is that there is extreme genetic heterogeneity in these conditions. There are lots of genes that can cause these conditions, and controversially, we don't think that genetic categorization is going to work. So what we are doing instead at Hebbian Bio is to focus on a novel layer of biology that we discovered to be critically implicated in these conditions, and that's the cell surface of the neurons. So we're mapping protein networks on neuronal cell surfaces. This allows us to simplify the cell biology and to reduce complexity for faster target identification and for unlocking novel targets. We're currently carrying out our first pilot, sponsored by the Project AP Foundation. We have assembled a team of neuroscientists and machine learning experts. We have filed our first patent, and we have reproducible biosystems that allow us to do this work. Critically, we are the only company that is leveraging cell surface biology for these conditions. So about 15% of the 50 million children affected have what we call single gene forms of autism. So the genetics is known for these. Even so, there are about 500 such genes identified. So how do we reduce this complexity to reduce the time to discovery? As I mentioned, we focus on mapping. We have technology that allows us to map the entire protein landscape of what the patient proteins are putting on the neurons. And that allows us to identify a smaller subset of proteins instead of the 23,000 genes, to then match these protein signatures to patient symptom severity. And even though there's diverse genetics in these conditions that we're going after, what they do share in common is symptom severity overlap. So our platform allows us to simplify, stratify, and identify multiple targets, biomarkers, and to develop this as a companion diagnostic tool for better clinical trial design. And because we're going after genetics, because we're bypassing genetics, it allows us to go after the other 85% that have complex genetics. So we have established partnerships with clinical trial-ready patient organizations. This gives us access to tools and key opinion leaders. Our business model is licensing of data and targets to pharma companies. Here I've listed 2 recent examples, specifically in the CNS space for targets, not drugs. The team consists of myself. I'm a developmental neurobiologist and stem cell scientist with over 20 years of research experience, and our advisor, Mary Beth Hatton, who is a professor of neurobiology at Rockefeller and a member of National Academies of Sciences. And so we have so far tested our pipeline and identified a target that is shared in these neurodevelopmental disorders, and we are seeking $900,000 to allow us to accomplish our milestones of focusing on these conditions to build an atlas, and that will put us in a position to initiate collaboration discussions with pharma companies. So in summary, we are pioneering a new approach for complex CNS disorders. We're simplifying, stratifying, and identifying novel targets, and we are going after an untapped market, and these are other future indications patients that our platform can be applied to immediately as it is. And we are currently asking for funding and partnerships to help us along this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Hourinaz. Are there any questions within the audience? Anyone have a question about Hebi and Bio and their approach? We do have a microphone that can be handed around the audience if... No? Yes, I see somebody who... maybe stand up so the microphone can get to you more quickly.
Great talk. Just a quick question. Can you explain a little bit more about what that atlas would look like? Is it essentially like signatures of proteins that can be mapped to certain characteristics or subtypes like you were describing?
Yeah, so basically proteins that we identify overall that sit on the cell surface, and then we can mine that map to identify protein signatures using our machine learning algorithm, and then match those key protein signatures to symptom severity scores. And so this is a new way of stratifying these patients in an entirely new way, because they do have a lot of symptom overlap, but their genetics is completely diverse. And we're not focusing on the genetics, and we're basically looking at this protein layer, which kind of gives an insight into the dynamics of the biology.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Hourinaz.
All right, our next guest, Julien Berro from Nanochuck. Julien's innovation introduces the world to genetically encoded biosensors to improve diagnoses. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the claps. All right, so thanks everyone for being here, and I'm Julien Berro. I'm here to introduce you to a new platform technology that harnesses mechanical forces to improve the precision of drug discovery, diagnostics, and drug delivery. So picture an aggressive tumor. So it's made of metastatic cancer cells that are highly motile, that are ready to crawl around and out of the tumor to invade other tissues. So that process exerts a lot of mechanical forces on the environment. But when you think about an anti-cancer drug, it targets the cell's biochemistry and not its mechanics, right? And so the mechanobiology of cancer and tumors is largely untapped as a primary drug target. So currently, cell motility, which is the big phenotype of these anti-metastatic cells, is not used as a primary assay in drug screening. Currently, it takes some time to identify targets and then find hits that then lead to leads. And because it takes so much time, because you go through biochemical assays and only towards the end you use a cell phenotype. So what we're solving with Nanochuck 101 is basically to speed up this process and directly screen on cell motility. And that will lead to faster drug development and better leads in a faster time. So our solution is Nanochuck 101, an extracellular matrix force sensor. And so how does it work? So it senses the stresses on the extracellular matrix. So if you think about a non-motile cell, it's not exerting any stress on its extracellular matrix. And our sensors are these peptide-based devices that are put in the extracellular matrix, and that senses force. So it basically doesn't change conformation unless the cell crawls on the substrate and exerts stresses on the substrate and opens the sensor and emits luminescence. All right, so now we can use it as a drug screening tool because you can make every single well of a plate can have an experiment with a different drug. And if the drug is effective at reducing cell motility, you should stop seeing any luminescence. Okay, so we, over the competition, we're a much cheaper solution, much higher throughput. So we can go up to 1536 well plate, which is great for drug screening. And it also, I want to stress that you don't need any extra equipment, and you can also use much more natural environment to do your screen. So it's a market of about $350 million in US for the motility assays in oncology. And we have a partnership, we're working on a partnership with Promega for the detection technology. But our technology is not only for this application, and we can do a lot more. And so our platform is based on these proprietary force-sensing peptides that are very modular and can be tuned for a broad range of applications. I showed you drug discovery applications, but we're working on diagnostics and therapeutics, especially in cardiovascular disease, such as aneurysms and atherosclerosis. Okay, so that's, we need about $600,000 to reach our first milestone. We expect to have our first customers in about 2 years, in less than 2 years, and become profitable in less than 4 years. I'm Julien Berro. I'm an associate professor at Yale University with 20 years of experience in mechanobiology, and I have co-founded NanoCheck with an interdisciplinary team with experience in mechanobiology, tool development, oncology, and cardiovascular disease. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Julien. Any questions? I have one to help us get started, if you want. With such a broad market, such a massive market, where do you think the starting point is for you? Is there a specific area that you'll target initially?
So really for us, I think the very first product, which is this extracellular matrix force sensors for drug screening, I think that's what's going to be really the very first application that should be profitable relatively quickly. And then the next applications are other sensors that you can put on different receptors. So that's a nice thing of our system is it's very modular and very quick to develop just because it's genetically encodable. And so using that for other applications for drug screening, but also diagnostics and therapeutics, drug delivery in cardiovascular system is something that we're very interested in moving forward.
Great, thank you. Any other quick questions? Yep, we have one there.
Hello, hi. I want to ask a scientific question about what do you think this mechanosensor relationship with EMT? You know, like the transformation that a lot of epithelial tumor cells.
Right. So that's really the kind of stages we're targeting with our sensors. It's to pick up these transitions during cancer, and that's really one of the applications also for basic research that we can do. And I might have gone very quick on this slide, but we also have a market in academic research labs to use those sensors for basic research, not only in oncology, but also in organoids and other mechanobiology problems. And there's a big need there too. It's a smaller market, but it's a big need, yeah.
Great. Any last questions? Oh, we're going to move on. Julien, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
I see Julien has a fan club. So our next speaker will be Evris Gavathiotis of Baxgen. And Evris has developed a new therapeutic strategy to improve cancer patient outcomes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Evris Gavathiotis, the founder of Baxgen Therapeutics, a biotech company that spin off from my lab's research at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. Baxgen Therapeutics is developing innovative cancer therapeutics by directly targeting apoptotic proteins in cancer cells. Our lead product is a small molecule activator of BAX, a novel target, a pro-apoptotic protein. Our BAX activator, small molecule, has compelling efficacy and safety profile in animal models, and it can address significant unmet need in acute myeloid leukemia and additional blood cancers and solid tumors. Baxgen has a clear path to develop BCT1 in phase 1 trials. And using a patient selection strategy based on biomarkers. In addition, the company holds a broad portfolio of patents that cover small molecules, combinations, and methods of use. Lastly, BACSEN has a proprietary platform technology that includes novel insights about apoptosis biology and targets, and also cutting-edge drug discovery approaches. Sorry. BAX is a novel target in a clinical validated pathway. It is downstream of anti-apoptotic proteins that inhibit BAX. And upon activation of BAX, induction of cell death in cancers happens. Anti-apoptotic proteins are inhibited by several inhibitors, such as venetoclax, which is the only FDA-approved drug. Our BAX activator works downstream of venetoclax. It can activate BAX as a single agent, but also can work in combination with anti-apoptotic inhibitors, such as venetoclax. Here is the data that shows favorable efficacy of the BAX activator as a single agent in acute myeloid leukemia and diffuse large B-cell lymphoma models. In addition, we see favorable efficacy in several solid tumors, such as colorectal, pancreatic, and non-small cell lung cancer, in combination with navitoclax drug. All of these models are resistant to the FDA drug venetoclax. Okay. As I mentioned, our first clinical application will be AML, and currently, venetoclax therapy is 60% refractory to AML patients. And among those patients that respond to venetoclax therapy, 45% relapse within a year. So our BAX activator can address both relapse and refractory patients as a single agent, but also as a combination with venetoclax. In addition, we also have data to support broad activity in solid tumors with several combinatorial treatments. We have a very clear path how we develop our lead compound, BCT1, in phase 1 trials. First, we're going to select patients that respond favorably to this treatment. And we're going to use this by evaluating, profiling patients for BAX expression, BCL2 and BCLXL expression levels. Our phase 1 step will determine efficacy, but also safety dose, right? As a single agent. And then we can expand this to phase 1b trials, where we can add additional cohorts of patients and determine efficacy, but also safety of a single agent, but also as of the combination of our BAX activator with venetoclax plus chemotherapy in various blood cancers. So here's the development plan for a single agent, but also combinatorial studies. And coming from IND-enabled studies all the way to phase 1 completion. I have also indicated they require funding. And besides the VC funding that we request, we're also pursuing grant applications and seeking partnerships with pharma and biotech companies for select combinatorial treatments, but also development of several small molecules in our pipeline.
Evris, I'm sorry, you're 4
So I have
minutes
to,
are up. You have to stop.
Right. So these
No,
are
you
our
have to
team.
stop.
This is my
Sir.
last slide. So basically, we have a very a worldwide expertise in development of cancer therapeutics and apoptosis drugs. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Evris.
Okay. So,
Evris, wait, I think we have time for one question if you want to come back.
oh, sorry. Yeah.
No? You don't want to?
Yeah. Sure. I thought I.
Okay, I do see a question here in the middle. Is that Chow? Hi, nice to see you.
I don't see anyone.
Nice talk. Can you comment on the selectivity? How do you achieve the selectivity of killing cancer cell through the BAC activator versus a normal cell?
Yeah, there's a different mechanism how we can how actually are directly targeting BACs has a therapeutic window. First, a lot of normal cells, they don't express BACs. All of the cancer tumor, also all the cancer cells, they have higher expression of BACs compared to their normal, corresponding normal tissue as well. And as I mentioned, there's like a certain non-terminal normal cells, like cardiac neuronal cells that don't express BACs at all. And venetoclax development sort of like history has shown us like, how indirect Bax activator has a therapeutic index. So based on this evidence, we feel like very comfortable. And plus, our studies our safety studies, like in animals, like about daily dosing over 30 days, we haven't seen any obvious toxicity in mouse models.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Is another question? Okay.
Next, we have Palavex. The team at Palavex have developed a novel approach for post-operative pain control. Please join me in welcoming Courtney Rowe and Kelly Burke.
Thank you. Surgery hurts. 40 million adults and 4 million children have surgery every year, and 80% have uncontrolled pain. I'm Dr. Courtney Rowe. This is Dr. Kelly Burke, and we are going to eliminate pain after surgery. Local anesthetics can be injected into the surgical site, but they don't last very long. Continuous infusions can be used to last longer for surgical pain, like epidurals, nerve blocks, but they're too complicated. Over-the-counter medications like acetaminophen and Motrin are simpler, but they're more mild. And opioids are stronger, but they're too risky in terms of addiction. The consequence is that millions are harmed every year. Meet Palavex, our implantable, biodegradable pain relief film. This film is placed into the surgical site by the surgeon at the time of surgery, releases a local anesthetic to the nerves for 7 days, and then biodegrades when no longer needed. The key is in our patented brush technology. On a nanoscopic level, our film is made up of millions of brushes, each with thousands of bristles that we control. These bristles bind and release drug and allow for targeted drug delivery to the surgical site. The drug we're using is a local anesthetic called bupivacaine, which blocks the pain nerves from firing. Because it blocks nerves, it means that our product doesn't treat pain after you felt it. It prevents you from ever feeling any pain sensation. Because we control drug delivery through our brush design, we are able to do long-lasting drug delivery. Injected bupivacaine lasts a few hours. Our closest competitor is a liposomal bupivacaine that lasts about 48 hours. But Palavex lasts for 7 days. We have 2 use cases for our IP. One is as a standalone film that the surgeon places into the surgical site at the time of surgery. And then the other is a combo product with a surgical implant to provide embedded pain control. And both are simple for the customer. The global market for pain control after surgery is growing at 5% per year. On the blue, you can see the market for our first indication, which would be inguinal hernia surgery for our standalone film, and that's 130 million. In the green, you can see that the global market for surgical implants is growing at 7% per year. We would first plan to partner with more simple implants like a breast implant or a hernia mesh. And even with exclusive partnerships with these companies, we anticipate being able to capture a large portion of this market. We have the right cross-functional team to perform preclinical and clinical evaluation. Kelly Burke, a polymer scientist at UConn, myself, a surgeon at Connecticut Children's, and Chris Foster, a cell biologist at UConn Health. Together, we are able to provide clinically based design, which keeps the realities of modern healthcare and the clinical world in mind from day one. We have an aggressive but accomplishable plan for FDA approval of our standalone film by 2030 and of a combo with an implant by 2033. And because our indication surgeries are common and power calculations show a small number of patients needed to reach significance, we anticipate being able to complete clinical trials rapidly, reducing cost. But to get to year 6, we need to get past year 1. And for that, we need money, a CEO, and introductions. With $3 million, we can complete preclinical work within 1 year. We need a CEO who can take us from great IP to a great company. And we need introductions to implant makers and pharmaceuticals. So reach out if you can help so that Palavex can eliminate pain after surgery.
Amazing, thank you so much. Any questions in the crowd? Yep, one here. I think we'll wait for a mic if we can, just so it can be recorded.
I can repeat your question for the Zoom audience, if you'd like. Storage and handling. Great question. So I'm going to turn this over to the good Dr. Burke, who can speak to us about our components.
Right now, so we haven't done the long-term testing on this, but these materials right now are stable at room temperature once they're prepared. And then, we're in discussions with the surgeons about how best to actually package and deliver the product. But they are stable, yeah.
We imagined a peel pack.
Yeah.
Another question here?
The question was, do you cut it to size? Yes. So to be honest, we pitch this as a pain film for everybody, but I do come from the pediatric world, and so I just hate inventions that can't be right size for kids. So this was actually designed with exactly that in mind. So the film can be cut to size. It kind of looks like, we'll show it to you later, it kind of looks like thick saran wrap. So you can cut it to size if you need a little bit less, if you want to take your total body dose, but then cut it into little pieces and put it in all your robotic or laparoscopic ports, you can absolutely do that, which is my personal bias to make sure that it fits for all size of patients. Thank you for that question.
Courtney, Kelly, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That was a really interesting presentation. So now we'll hear from FIG Therapeutics, Ariel Yusupov. Ariel's innovation exposes a novel path to fighting cancer. Please join me in welcoming Ariel to the stage.
Hello, my name is Ariel Yusupov, and I'm the CEO and founder of FIG, or Factor-Induced Gene Therapeutics. We have developed a gene therapy that hijacks overexpressed transcription factors in cancer to drive a multimodal immunotherapeutic. Essentially, we use cancer against itself. So one of the main problems in cancer treatment is that many of them make things worse shortly after making it better. First, most cancers are driven by overexpression of transcription factors, which bind to target sequences in DNA and transcribe genes. Thus, the #1 medical treatment strategy is to inhibit them. For example, inhibitors of the androgen receptor, the #1 culprit behind prostate cancer, makes over $20 billion in revenue in each year. The problem with this approach, however, is that transcription factor inhibition induces resistance within 1 to 2 years. The second big problem with cancer therapy is that it is a master immunovator. Immunotherapy is a promising solution. You may have heard of CAR T, CAR NK, cytokine therapies, neoantigen cancer vaccines like with Moderna, but they have failed, and they'll keep failing in solid tumors due to the immunosuppressive tumor microenvironment. Cancer immunotherapy for solid tumors can only succeed in a multimodal approach that also addresses the immunosuppressive tumor microenvironment in addition to anti-tumor therapy. Thankfully, we've developed a solution to both problems. Rather than inhibit the transcription factors overexpressed in cancer and thus induce resistance, we actually harness their function to transcribe genes. We've developed a proprietary sequence that recruits these cancer-causing transcription factors to bind and then drive a multimodal therapeutic. This cocktail of multiple genes not only recruits anti-tumor immune cells to the tumor, but also inhibits multiple key immunosuppressive factors in the tumor microenvironment. This polynucleotide, which we've named stealth gene therapy, is encapsulated in a lipid nanoparticle and will be injected directly into the tumor biweekly as a neoadjuvant prior to surgery with MRI or ultrasound guidance. Then we will have essentially hijacked the cancer cell to train the immune system to kill cancer cells locally and wherever they may be hiding. The great thing about being driven by cancer-causing transcription factors is that non-cancer cells, which have low transcription factor expression, make very little therapeutic. So we can be very promiscuous with our delivery and have cancer cell specificity with non-specific delivery. Although our technology is being developed for multiple cancers, our main focus is high-risk localized prostate cancer, which makes up about a quarter of all prostate cancer patients, because half of them, or 33,000 patients a year, have cancer recurrence after standard therapy or prostatectomy. Then they receive these castration or AR inhibition drugs that quickly develop resistance. If successful, our stealth gene therapy can delay or eliminate the need for this treatment and then acquire a significant portion of this $20 billion per year market share. Making these very modest assumptions, we actually have projected first-year revenue between $3 and $5 billion. So this is our team. I personally have over a decade in prostate cancer expertise, as well as years of experience at Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, leading RNA and gene therapeutics development from discovery all the way to phase 3. We also have leaders from Columbia, MSKCC, Cleveland Clinic, and Vimvax, who are all very excited about this technology and have expertise in prostate cancer and immunotherapy and have led multiple clinical trials. We're currently raising about $400,000 in pre-seed with a significant portion raised for our first milestone, which is lead selection. We also have applied for a $300,000 phase 1 SBIR grant to be issued in December. In 2025, we plan an $8.5 million seed to fund IND-enabling studies and analytical development. And in 2026, we plan a Series A to fund clinical trials, and also will be taking full advantage of non-dilutive phase 2 funding. If you have any questions, please contact me at this QR code, and thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. That's a very interesting presentation. Do we have any questions from our audience? Yes?
What's the size limit of your cargo?
What's the size of the polynucleotide? About
how big the cargo?
All together about 7 kb. Yeah, so we have pretty good transfection efficiency, and we've actually optimized the untranslated region to increase the transfection efficiency.
Do we have any other questions? I'm sorry I'm squinting. It's just a little hard to see with that beautiful spotlight on me. Ariel, I'll just blurt out that, you know, we have a lot of cell therapy happening in Westchester, and I hope to be able to introduce you to some of those potential partners over time. And there's going to be a big event held at Regeneron on May 23rd on the topic of cell and gene therapy. So whether you're there or not, if any of you here are interested in this broad topic, that's another event you could think of attending. And if there are no more questions, which I don't think I see any hands, thank you, Ariel.
Thank you.
Next, we have Prisca Obi from Virtus Therapeutics. Prisca and the team behind Virtus Therapeutics are pioneering a new class of activator compounds indicated to treat over 20 rare metabolic diseases, including neurodegeneration, PKAN. From Virtus Therapeutics, Prisca Obi.
My name is Prisca Obi, and I'm a scientist working with Virtus Therapeutics, a Yale University spinout that's developing a new coenzyme A-based therapy for treating rare and orphan metabolic diseases. This is a photo of the Gravina family. In 2015, they welcomed twins, a boy named Isaac and a girl named Charlize. Both twins were diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder called propionic acidemia. Due to this, they are missing an enzyme that the body needs in order to digest protein. Shortly after birth, they nearly passed away from acute metabolic failure. Unfortunately, there's no cure or targeted treatment for propionic acidemia, only ways to manage the symptoms. The doctors placed Isaac and Charlize on a synthetic liquid diet supplied by nasal feeding tubes pictured here. And when this wasn't enough, they were referred for the only other option, liver transplantation. Here's a picture of the family 4 years later. If you'll notice, their son Isaac is missing because he passed away from complications caused by the transplant. Fortunately, his twin sister Charlize survived. This bittersweet story captures the reality of several patients with this disease, many of whom also suffer from intellectual disability and often don't survive past their 20s. Our goal at Virtus Therapeutics is to develop the first FDA-approved small molecule therapy for propionic acidemia, based on our newly discovered drugs called VTACs, or Virtus Therapeutics Activator Compounds, currently under strong patent protection until 2040. VTACs consists of a family of 14 small molecules that were discovered at Yale for their ability to strongly activate an enzyme called PANK3, increasing its activity by nearly 100% compared to control. Why is this PANK3 enzyme important? Pancake-3 is the enzyme responsible for making a molecule known as coenzyme A, which our cells need in order to make energy. In propionic acidemia, toxic metabolites accumulate that inhibit pancake-3, leading to coenzyme A deficiency and life-threatening metabolic failure. Our VTACs aim to reverse this by further boosting pancake-3 activity, leading to increased coenzyme A and metabolic rescue. For patients, this would mean fewer hospitalizations, more ability to eat normal foods, greater personal independence, and greater chances of surviving young adulthood. There is currently no other small molecule treatment for this disease in active clinical trials. We estimate a market size of around $350 million a year, based on there being about 1,000 patients in the US with this disease, and pricing on par with similar orphan drugs to be covered by insurance. Moreover, patients can easily be identified by newborn screening already in place, and we also estimate that this market will steadily increase as patients survive longer from better treatment. In addition, there are over 20 rare similar rare metabolic diseases that are also marked by coenzyme A deficiency, meaning that VTACs have a high potential to be a multi-indication drug with a broad label across this family of diseases. Our next goal is to raise $2 million in investment to complete preclinical studies over the next 2 years. These studies will focus on 2 things. First is testing the efficacy and then also the safety of VTACs in patient-derived cells and a mouse model of the disease. This will help us reach our next big milestone, which is to reach IND-enabling studies by 2026, which is the final step before clinical trials. To end this, I'd like to acknowledge the current team at Virtus Therapeutics that makes this all possible. VTACs were discovered in the lab of the company founder and Yale professor, Dr. Chikri Mamoon, who has been studying metabolic pathways and their relevance to human health for over 24 years. Together, our team has been awarded over $30 million in NIH funding, published over 100 scientific papers, accumulated over 30 years of commercial life sciences experience. We hope that you're able to join us in our efforts to move Virtus Therapeutics forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Prisca. Any questions from the crowd? I have one to get us going. So you mentioned this technology has applicability to 20 different rare diseases. How did you decide on your first target? What was that process like?
So I think our first target was basically based on the prevalence of the disease. So of those 20 diseases, it's one of the ones that are actually more prevalent, although all of them are basically rare. And as well as there also being a lot of scientific research that our drugs would be good targets for this disease.
Great. Any other questions? One here.
So eventually, this indication might work for different types of diseases, sort of like the basket trials?
Yeah, so I think a basket trial is something that could be tried. I think, so first, we're focusing on propionic acidemia, but I think once we have it approved for that drug, I think sort of batching other disease types when we do clinical trials for those would make the most sense.
All right, thank you, Prisca.
Now we'll hear from Dan Gareau of Surgivance. Dan and Surgivance explore the use of laser microscopy to help advance cancer care. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Surgivance is advanced surgical pathology to improve surgeon efficiency and support unparalleled precision skin cancer therapy. Because pathology is slow, surgeries that depend on pathology are delayed, and the patients have to wait under anesthesia while you do the unnecessary steps. So it's a problem for both the patients and the providers. And limiting the number of surgeries per day mean that patients will have to wait longer in days to get their surgeries done. So it's a problem of access too. Our cutting-edge technology makes rapid confocal images visually intuitive so that Surgivance can replace the entire histopathology lab with a breadbox-sized device. Seamless integration will enable providers to rapidly process biopsies to get to a diagnosis in a minute instead of a half an hour or a week, depending on the setting. with income streams such as the visual intuitive AI software, the reagents and disposables, and the high-tech, low-cost laser imaging device. Surgivance could make surgery faster, less painful, more profitable, and inherently digital, which will supercharge remote consultations. Surgivance customers will be Mohs surgeons, dermatologists, pathologists, and laboratory administrators, all of whom pay for pathology. We will approach them and say, hey, we can reduce the burden on you to keep the histopathology lab operational while helping you make your surgeries faster and better and helping you make more money. Surgivance is positioned to grow organically through the medical pathology market sectors, starting in research and in Mohs specialty surgery. Competing technologies, research devices, they lack the speed, the simplicity, or the AI intuitive visual software of Surgivance. So all competitors lack the advantage either in the hardware space or the software space or both. And our patent portfolio will keep these competitors at bay with our unique technical advantage being the most frictionless direct-to-digital sampling of the 3D pathology. And this makes us attractive to prospective future acquirers that are big players in our space, such as Leica Biosystems and Carl Zeiss. We're raising $2 million to launch in research and Mohs specialty surgery markets, and then we will expand in the dermatology and pathology verticals with the same technical specifications, which are imaging industry standards. Our phase 2 SBIR currently supports our ISO-compliant medical device manufacturing partner Access Optics, and we're close to having our medical device built, so there's some excitement behind starting to sell it and watch its traction grow. And a lot of that is thanks to these strong alliance partners that you see here. Our core team, Forging the Approach, is united behind the problem and the vision of what success looks like. Our directors anchor us to definitive business standards in medical imaging, and we're supported by a world-class team of field demonstration partners who are physician scientists that run clinical trials. And I run the show with a commitment to innovating for the benefit of the patient, the provider, and the stockholders. Our strategic gain stages with increasing sales will follow FDA clearance, and we forecast $50 million in revenue in 2028. In conclusion, clinical translation of Surgivance technology is the only means to get the high-quality medical image data that quantum and AI will demand in the future. We can improve surgeon productivity, potentially eliminate mistakes and lawsuits, right? Decrease physician fatigue, and most importantly, make surgeries better for the patients. Nobody wants to think about surgery, so let's fund this startup and provide the best possible cures in the fight against cancer and achieve a large multiple on revenue. Thanks for your attention. Go Surgivance.
Thank you, Dan. Do we have any questions? So I'll ask a question. Fortunately, I haven't been in too many surgical rooms, but an important thing for any new medical device is, fitting comfortably into the workflow. So how does your medical device, your little box, fit into the actual surgical, whatever they call it, the operating room?
Yeah, it's not just the physical room, it's the whole workflow. We've worked really hard to maximize the translational aspects of this. I think our competitors really have failed in this area, right? First is the intuitive visual software, so nobody's scratching their heads to start with. Second is the portable, small form factor of our patented hardware. We're the only confocal that has no moving parts inside. So it can be smaller, made like a big objective lens, like a solid state, boom, 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 no misalignment. And it can just be right in the corner, lab in a box style. So this will really aid in Mohs surgeries, and we think we can improve their brand by putting it right in the corner.
But have you actually spoken to any OR directors about whether there's actually a corner available for it to sit in?
Yes, several of them. We have many, many partners. Hopefully we'll make their brand better, just like these great products over time have made the brands of all these big companies, of which we are not.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience?
pathologists, surgeons,
Thank you
investors.
so much, Dan. I think our next thing is intermission, but I'm going to let Mary Howard tell us for sure.
Thank you very much. How about the first group of therapeutics ventures? It's really been incredible to hear them. So we are going to take a break now. So we'll be back here a little bit before 3 o'clock, please, so we can keep going. There, if you want to go and meet the people who have just spoken, there will be easels at the top of the theater. Several right in the aisle and some right outside the theater door. So you'll be able to find them and also use a QR code to connect with them directly. So thank you. There's coffee up on the top floor. There'll be an escalator that'll go up there. So if you want some coffee and some something to eat with that, you're welcome to do that as well. So thank you very much, and we'll see you back in another 25 minutes or so. Thanks.